Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, April 4th, 2025. I'm Ed Kavik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, the Sierra Victor 1 Gulf Alpha/Alpha Mount Athos DXpedition announces further DXCC processing delays are expected. The NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center shows that solar sail 25 has peaked and is declining. We talk about MVARC Nets on the air, what's happening with DX, give a solar activity update, talk about some upcoming contests, and go into some interesting online radio content. In what appears to have been an unfortunately timed press release distributed on April 1st, or April Fool's Day, the SV1GA/A DXpedition that sought to bring Mount Athos on the air and was shut down shortly after it began in January, announced that they expect further delays while the legitimacy of their paperwork is being reviewed by the ARRL to, quote, ensure compliance. In the press release, they mentioned that theirs was the first outside group transmitting from Mount Athos in more than 35 years, and that there's a history of challenges in getting operations verified at Mount Athos, even by the monks who live there. As they said in their release, quote, the ARRL accreditation represents climbing a larger mountain than the mountain itself for a DXpedition to a rare location such as Mount Athos. As your author has had the good fortune of getting into the SV1GA/A log before they were shut down, we will be monitoring developments with great interest as they develop. The press release can be found in the show notes. As they say, it's all downhill from here. The NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center forecasts space weather conditions and collects data for that analysis. With recently added data, it appears that we reached the peak of solar cycle 25 at the end of last summer, and we're now on a downward trajectory to the lower sunspot numbers and solar flux indices. It is predicted that the SFI will dip below 150 early next year, which will likely mean a large reduction in the reliability of the 10 and 12 meter bands. So enjoy the good conditions while you can and work that DX. NOAA's page tracking the solar cycle progression for cycle 25 can be found in the show notes. And now a brief look at MVARC Nets on the air. As always, we have our 2-meter net on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater, followed on the repeater immediately with the digital net, which uses System Fusion to C4FM. On the weekends, MVARC has their slow-speed CW Roundtable on Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. at 3.565 megahertz on CW, usually going between 12 and 15 words a minute. And of course, they'll slow down to whatever speed you're comfortable. Also, after that, the MVARC Cherry Tree Net is on Saturday and Sundays at 8:30 a.m. at 3.920 megahertz lower sideband. And of course, all are welcome to join us. Now let's take a look at what's happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air in the next week. Stations on the air will include Cyprus, Fakarava Atoll, Chichijima, Asagawara Islands, Guadalupe Island, Tanzania, Cayman Islands, Mali, Greenland, Martinique, Dominica Island, Gabon, British Virgin Islands, Majuro Atoll and the Marshall Islands, Solomon Islands, Senegal, and Antarctica. A calendar of DXpeditions can be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the solar flux index was 180 and the estimated sunspot number was 158. Over the last week, the SFI has increased. NOAA is forecasting G1 geomagnetic storms today and tomorrow due to increased coronal hole activity. The chance for solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is low at 15% due to the flare potential from sunspot region 4048. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are likely today and tomorrow due to region 4048 with a predicted probability of 70%. R3 or greater blackouts are less likely with a 15% chance predicted. There's a reasonable chance of 6-meter propagation through the middle of the month, so keep an eye on the band and spotting clusters to be ready for openings. With the forecasted R1 to R2 blackouts, there may be some brief degradation of propagation this weekend, but conditions have been favorable overall, and it remains a good time for amateurs of all licensed classes to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see delayer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. And to see the real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2, information from radiosonde data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now for a look at some upcoming contests. On the contest calendar this weekend, we can look forward to the PODXS 070 New Member Jamboree, the EA Ready Contest, Georgia State Parks on the Air, Florida State Parks on the Air, the RSGB FT4 International Activity Day, the Louisiana QSO Party, the Mississippi QSO Party, the Missouri QSO Party, the SPDX Contest, the George Batterson 1935 QSO Party, and as always, the K1USN SSTs, MSTs, and CWTs will all be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And finally, let's take a look at some interesting online radio content. Chuck, KK6USY, builds a 1.5-pound Moxon antenna. Matt, M0DQW, takes a look at an inexpensive QRP antenna tuner. Josh, KI6NAZ, takes a look at low-profile and stealthy radios. Vince, VE6LK, unboxes a ZBit X. Hayden, VK7HH, fixes an FM broadcast transmitter in both Part 1 and Part 2 of the series. Jeff, KF0MYB, and Joe, KF0MYJ, talk about the FCC's delete memo. Kevin, 2E0 Whiskey Mike Golf, activates Hedge End Island by Kayak. Sebastian, KI2D, shows how to do call stacking in Polo, also known as portable logger. David, Delta Lima 1 Delta November, updates his 2-meter and 70-centimeter Moxon antennas. George, VK2 AOE, makes bases for some classic CW keys. Kevin, KB9 RLW, shows how to use a nano VNA to find a cable fault. Steve, KM9G, takes a look at some tool batteries for portable ops. Matt, M0DQW, builds a complete VHF to microwave multi-mode SDR transceiver. Mike, M0MSN, shows his ATAS 128 controllers. Walt, K4OGO, tries out the MA50 positive V dipole antenna. Mike, K8MRD, puts the Watt Cycle 280 amp-hour lithium iron phosphate battery through its paces. And Walt, K4OGO, takes a closer look at the Red Corner USDR Plus 8-band transceiver. And in the category of April Fool videos, so no, these aren't real, but they sure are amusing, Tim, N7KOM, makes a coffee cup holder for his VHF Yagi. Steve, KM9G, puts his radials in a spiral for Spin DX. And Ara, N6ARA, introduces the soda phone. That's right, a payphone that you lug up to the top of a mountain to get all that DX. And that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us as always, and Best 73 for Amateur Radio News and Notes. I'm Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie. Hope you have a great week ahead, and look forward to seeing you next week.